So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Marina Fernandes. I'm the town engineer here in the town of Milton. I've been with Milton for a couple of years now. This presentation, if you went to the APWA conference in North Carolina this past August, you will look familiar. This is the exact same presentation that I presented at the APWA national event. I'll be speaking about successfully overcoming challenges of green infrastructure to transform public spaces. In this presentation, I'll be talking about just briefly about urban green infrastructure trends and benefits, our Milton stormwater utilities and funding for this project and future projects. I'll speak a little bit about the Unquity Brook watershed, overview of various BMP projects that we have ongoing and several degrees of completion, and review of public outreach challenges and takeaway. For urban green infrastructure and low impact development, it is defined by the US EPA as a cost-effective, resilient approach to managing wet weather impacts that provide many community benefits. So for that, you can have tree boxes, green cells, blue roofs, and we have been working on several different types of green infrastructures and low impact development throughout the town, either through new construction or also tagging along private construction and public construction as well. Some of the national trends that I want to bring up in this forefront of the presentation is green infrastructure and nature-based solutions do help adapt cities to high intensity storms and improve resiliency. I have made a point of not using the word climate change or climate resiliency because I was giving this presentation at a national stage, and I know that some parts, believe it or not, some parts of the country are still, some people do not want to hear that, and so you see some of the buzzwords that I have left off of this presentation. Investments in green infrastructures have now been prioritized by different federal funding. We have all had the chance to get some money through ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act, also known as the IIJA. And we are waiting on the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA. The other thing that is in the forefront right now is public awareness and research that have been linking green spaces to improved human health and overall well-being and social opportunities. So folks in our communities are aware of the benefits, largely aware, and they have been asking for their elected officials and engineering and DPW staff about opportunities for green spaces. The benefits of green infrastructures are many and they're plentiful. I talked a little bit about the social benefits, reducing heat island impacts, recharging aquifers, improving water quality. There's definitely several economic benefits, improving economic development in the areas, protection of our water supplies, environmental benefits such as restoring natural conditions, improving water quality. You can go from there. And I don't think I need to speak a little bit too much about where we are here in Milton. We are all very close within the Neponset River watershed. And Unquity Brook is within the watershed. I think the uniqueness of Milton, especially for the projects that I have chosen to speak about, is due to the fact that we're very urban, and at the same time, it's a little urban oasis, very close to Boston. very close to Quincy, but at the same time, if you're walking down the street of Milton, you do feel like you're in a smaller town. You don't realize how close you are to the big city hustle. So that is really unique. The other thing that has allowed us to move forward with the projects is the fact that we have a stormwater utility in Milton. And I'm not going to take any of the credit of creating that. Actually, we have here on the line Hillary Waite from Braintree. She used to be our earlier environmental coordinator. She was much more boots on the ground with this effort, but it has definitely allowed us for a healthy way of managing stormwater, because now we have a financial opportunity to manage those assets, and also to keep up with our MS4 requirements. So if I know many communities have moved on to having stormwater utility, and I 100% think it's something that we should all be striving for. Here in Milton, it was approved in 2016. These funds are used to maintain stormwater utility and fulfill permit requirements. Examples of that is, in the past, we have been using the design, construct BMPs, clean catch basins, street sweepings, make point repairs, etc. That alone is not enough also to continue to work with our stormwater utility, stormwater infrastructure. So we have been very active in writing grants and requesting grants, leverage those grants to complete larger projects. In 2015 and 17, we received CZM Coastal Pollution Remediation Grant for the 25% design of the Unquity Brook Watershed Assessment and Stormwater Improvements. In 2018-19, we received yet another grant for the CZM Coastal Pollutant Remediation Grant. In 2020, we received CZM Coastal Pollution Remediation Grant for the design of the Algerine Corner, which is the second site. The police station was the first site. And then next year, it was the design of Cunningham School. And again, in 2021, we were awarded the 319 grant, which is competitive grant for the construction of Algerine Corner, which has now been updated to the construction of the school BMP site. What we learned from that 2016 study that was performed is that basically we took water samples collected at 18 different sites along Unquity Brook, both during the wet weather and dry weather events. And it did show that there is an issue with the wet weather water quality at Unquity. And we also found 15 potential sites that were surveyed and narrowed down those sites to 4 town-owned sites that could be developed into BMPs. The first site, which was constructed in 2019, was the Milton Police Station. It treated 7.5 acres of land at the 1-inch storm event for a total construction of $94,000. And we mostly used in-house staff, as well as limited outside construction for this work. Our second site was Algerine Corner. It treated a much larger area of 60 acres with the goals of TSS removal of 12,340 pounds per year, 50 pounds a year of TP removal, and 260 pounds a year of TN removal. The total estimated construction cost at this point is $120,000 for this site. We spent lot of our time here in our staff time and engineering time, really doing the public outreach. We created an informational website, which if you're interested, go into our website, go under Department of Public Work, Stormwater Management. You will find the Algerine corner right up on top. And it does talk about some of our design, talks about it really walks you through the project. We also, any meetings and any documents that were created as part of this work, we uploaded onto the website. So really create a transparency feel for residents to be able to get all their information from one site. So if one project resident asks for a document, instead of just providing it to that one resident, we provide it to everyone. So it was available on the website for everyone to see at the same time. We submitted a Google Forms survey for all the butters and residents, asking if they had any questions, any concerns. We talked about, provided them information about the website. And then along with that, we posted all of the questions and responses onto the website, because we did feel like if someone had one question, it was likely the same question for other residents. It was during COVID, so we had a public informational meeting that was posted to the website, and much of the information was supported by technical experts outside of our department, such as a mosquito expert was called in to talk about some of the concerns about mosquitoes proliferation on the site. As well, a tree expert was brought in to talk about their thoughts about how that survival of the existing trees would happen, which were all questions due to the fact that we got that survey ahead of time. And again, our arborist and entomologist reviews were made available. Even with that, the concerns of residents in regards to contamination of buildups, site maintenance, who would be maintaining it, right? Would this cause flooding on my backyard? Would this cause flooding to my basement? People had several questions. How would the space function? What would happen to the current trees? Those concerns were really taken into consideration, as well as the existing challenges, which from the design, which were the site constraints. We had a site, couldn't really go past it, obviously. Providing public education, combating misinformation, that all really helped us further our design. So after several tries, initially we were going to treat a much larger area. I'm sorry, we were trying to meet a 1-inch storm event, but because we constrained our site and added this channel flow, as opposed to just making one large basin, we ended up being able to treat a less storm event, which was only the 0.65 inch storm event rather than 1 inch. But that we felt like it was important because that's what the residents wanted. They didn't want a pool of infiltration here. They really wanted to continue to be able to use the space even when it was infiltrating. And they wanted the 3 existing pine trees, that you can see them here, to still be alive and healthy. So going back, we included a diversion point. This is the existing drain coming down, and it used to outfall underneath the road onto the Unquity Brook. So we added an insertion, we designed an insertion point with a treatment box, and then an outfall onto with a weir. The weir would be located here with an outfall onto Algerine corner, and then with a flow direction this way, and then out onto Unquity Brook again. We also provided this as a viewer, which we presented at our meeting with the residents. We felt like it would be a bit more clear for them to understand the diversion, the weir, the treatment structure, how you would enter the site, how we would go around the three trees, and we would continue a stone path around the site so people could still walk. And this is the final design that was picked by the residents. We gave them options for the grass trimmings. The trees would remain the same. Again, the basin would go around the trees and then out back onto Unquity. What's next? We just finished the design of a third location. That's actually Algerine Corner. It treats 34 acres for these removal goals, and a construction cost estimated at $194,000. This is a little video. Mira helped us. People couldn't really understand how the site was located. And this video actually enters the site from the school. Here's the school, and it walks you back on an existing, beaten path. Here, where she turns the camera to the left, that's where the existing basin would be on the site. And again, it would be all of that area over here. And then you will enter the drain back across the path again. And then the side, there's also an exit through here, through Pleasant Street up on top, and out to Pleasant Street. And this video was very well received. A lot of people confused the site. There was also, this is called, we used to call it green space. There's another green space, which is actually a playground. So when I was using the word green space, thinking, oh, it's the wooded area behind the school, people thought that I was going to build a basin in the kids' playground. So obviously people got really upset about that until we were able to explain. So when you're reaching out to residents, definitely do take the time to understand what they're calling the site, because you could create a lot of confusion by calling it or making people think you're on a different site or a different angle. Little bit about this design. Again, here's the school, right? You have a driving path around the school, and with an existing earth walking path around the site. Students do use it to get in and out of the school from this site, especially the kids that live around here. Again, initially our site was going to be inclusive of all of this area, but we narrowed it down once we did some field investigation, and we realized that the acreage upstream of the outfall point was a little smaller than we had anticipated because of the connectivity and the drainage. The other thing is, we learned from residents, this was not on our map initially. This resident actually, she her house furthers out into school property, not her house, but her fence, much further out than we had anticipated. So again, that also made us, we don't want to tear down her fence to create this, so we just went around it. We did create a berm because there was a over here and here, because there's a lot of, as you can see over here in the middle, in which is this person's actually, expanding backyard. It's the low point of the entire area, and obviously it ponds when it rains, and it collects the water from upstream where the playground is, what the school calls the green space, which is a green open space type of playground. And it's due mostly to the water that goes downstream this way. So we created this berm to divert this water in hopes of mitigating this flooding that occurs in her backyard and allowing that water to flow into her basin, as opposed to, having a bathtub effect into the owner's backyard. Before I move on to question, the one thing I want to say is just very recently, after this presentation, we found out that the Algerine corner, this corner over here, being an open space, one of the residents did challenge this project, calling as a Article 93. Basically, I believe this area is owned by parks, but it's not a park. But they put in a lawsuit calling it for Article 93, and we are unable to change, it does not allow one to change the use of a park space for any other type of use. And it went to what our understanding is that the resolution was that it cannot be used as a BMP, because the BMP would technically change the use of this location. So we moved on from the site, although we did feel like it would have been a great project and spent a lot of time. We were challenged again by this resident, and we have moved on. So we went to EPA and we have asked DP, and we have asked for the 319 grant to be repurposed to the school BMP, because again, initially the grant was to build this project, and now we have moved on, and we're hoping for construction of this project next summer when school's out. So with that being said, if anyone has any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marina. Does anybody have any questions? You can raise your hand in the using the reactions, or type it in the chat, or just take yourself off mute.
I have a question. Sorry.
Sorry, who was that?
No, you got me. Go for it.
All right, I'll go. Thanks, Marina. That's pretty neat. I was wondering if anybody else on the phone has run into that same issue, the Chapter 91 lawsuits by a resident to stop a BMP in their town. I mean, that seems like such a great project, especially like the amount of pollution you were getting for the dollars spent was just amazing. So like, it's just really too bad that took place. And I'm just wondering if that's like something that we need to be aware of and raise more at the state level going forward.
If I may, Newt, that's actually the second time it's happened in Milton. It was also proposed as a way to block a project on a street called Wendell Park. Luckily, Wendell Park is indeed not a park, it is a right-of-way. But it having park in the name was a point of contention as that project moved forward as well.
Thanks.
I would, hold on. In Canton, it's actually the opposite, where DOT is right now asking the select board to sign takings for stormwater improvements on Route 138, and it's taking of conservation land. So that was my question is, I think a stormwater improvement part is great, but if we can get more land in conservation to compensate for it, you can, do the swap and take it out, but put it someplace else. So you would think that they could take it out of Article 97, but you'd have to just find other conservation or parkland someplace else in town to mitigate for that taking.
I have a question.
Regan, you're finding that they're not doing that, they're just taking it?
it's interesting because they wanted the select board to sign the takings, but they hadn't even gone through the Stoughton Commission yet. So I said, my recommendation to the select board was they wait until, because it also the project involves wetland replication. The stormwater improvement is going to a vernal pool. So I said, I think we should wait to sign any takings to make sure that the design doesn't change before they sign and then my other question does DOT have to put land into, compensate the town for taking land out of Article 97? If it improves the stormwater that's going, they're also putting in a sidewalk and some other things, but if it improves the stormwater, obviously I would have no objections to that. But, I would take compensation too, if we can get it.
Excuse me, maybe I missed it. In this town, Milton and the others, is there a stormwater fees
There
for the
is,
residents?
yes, we have a stormwater utility.
Okay.
Regan, my question, so in Milton, since we already had the other BMP already designed and ready to go, we thought we would just move forward and get the 319 grant repurposed to the school BMP and get that done. Now, because it is a school-owned parcel and will be maintained by DPW. The Algerine corner having the article discussion that we just had, it doesn't completely get it out of, could we repurpose the land or assign, but it's just, from my understanding, it's going to be such a long process that we're pausing for now and focusing on the school BMP. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it doesn't necessarily kill the project, but it just provides for a much longer process. And this particular site is even more interesting because it is not I cannot say that it's not a park because they ruled it as a park, but it is a very passive use of land that all it currently has is it's a garden by the Milton Garden Club. So and same thing as I actually didn't even know, Hillary, about Wendell Park, but so maybe it's something that Milton residents like to use when they're against a certain project. So something that I would be a lot more aware of. I think that, had I known that this project would have been, and this project got started right when I started, and we didn't really have an engineer in town for several months before I was here. And I feel like it just kind of got going through the grant, and I am now making a much bigger point of getting ahead of communication. I do believe that had we done the communication much sooner than getting into the hands of some people literally were going out there saying that we are spilling sewage into the Algerine Park area, that there's sewage in the runaway, so that, and we all have heard that, right, through our job, that people not understanding what the basin is doing. And I wish I had gone much ahead of that. And I think we did that through the school project, and that's why it was so much more successful. And we had thought that the school site was going to be more difficult because it was near school.
Unknown caller.
I mean, I thought this was a really interesting site. I mean, this was actually both of the school site and the Algerine site were ones that that we originally found for the town. And I thought you guys did a beautiful job of the Algerine site. It was an unbelievable amount of area you were going to treat for a pretty small amount of money in a piece of land that really was not being meaningfully utilized as a park, aside from what its legal status was. And I thought you guys did a really nice design that was actually going to complement the park function of it rather than detracting from it. But I do think, but my understanding is that you guys got an informal letter from EEA saying that it was their opinion that you couldn't treat off-site runoff on Article 97 land. That, you know, if there was like a parking lot on the ball field, you could treat the runoff from the parking lot, but that you couldn't manage off-site runoff, which is, I mean, I can understand the reasoning for that, but I also think it's sort of problematic. And I know in a lot of other places, that's like their whole strategy for climate adaptation. And it's enormously challenging in older communities like, excuse me, like Milton, that don't have a lot of available land. So I don't know if you, I mean, is my interpretation of that correct? And it doesn't sound like it was like a really official, like, oh yes, we've officially made this a policy, but it was kind of like, well, yeah, we don't think this is a good idea.
I haven't, yeah, no, I think you have the right interpretation. And I think that we were told by our legal counsel that had been the interpretation, but I'm not quite sure if it was written down.
And
The
then
other
just
thing that I want to highlight, and I think would be useful, maybe hopefully for some communities, is we have approximately 35 BMPs throughout town. Like I said, different magnitudes, different sites, different styles of BMPs. And we have an annual DPW yearly contract with a outside contractor to maintain that. So we have been able to lift off from the duties of our DPW staff to maintain these. Some are maintained twice a year, some are maintained once a year, different needs for each BMPs and different needs for each site. But that's the way that we have been able to, and we would like to continue maintaining our BMPs, because as you know, they are just as good as they can get maintained.
Thanks, Marina. I think that answers Larry's question, which was how often do you need to do maintenance and what department does it? So it sounds like DPW is contracting that out.
If any community is interested in checking out our contract, I'll be more than happy to share that with any of you.
So
Thanks.
I had a question I threw in the chat.
Yep, go
You
ahead,
showed
John.
the school, you showed the school project, and I thought I saw 14,000 pounds of phosphorus being removed on 34 acres. Is that correct?
That's for the
Sounds like-
school, it's 34 acres and 10,400 pounds per year of TSS removal.
Oh, TSS removal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it said phosphorus. I was gonna say, come on over to Boston. We're gonna put you to work for 5 days. We'll be all set.
I think
do
it's
you-
only 40 pounds per year of TP removal, only 40.
No,
pounds.
no, that's what I assumed. That's why I saw it. I thought I had seen 14 or 10,000 pounds of phosphorus, and I wasn't. Now, do you ever measure that? I know we all use formulas and et cetera to say we will accomplish greatness on the spreadsheet. We build it and we maintain it so it still looks pretty. But do we ever check to see it's it performing as we had originally anticipated, et cetera? Do you do that?
I have not been measuring it, but I've been talking to our consultants about how do we, keep tracks of our metrics. So I'd be interested to see if any other community has been actively doing that myself.
Yeah, we're doing a project where we actually hired Northeastern. They're testing now. We're doing it for phosphorus. But we want to get 6 months of trial, see what we have floating down there today, put in the device and measure it 6 months afterwards and say, did we accomplish what we claimed we did? Because we're all using these good guesses. And unless in our case, the Charles River shows no algae because of us, at the end of the day, we're going to be spending somewhere maybe $300 million. It'd be nice to have some results besides green pastures. Results. I was just curious what you had and know. So.
No, that's interesting. So it sounds like you partner with a local university and you'll be measuring the phosphorus removal.
Yeah.
Pre and then post 6 months.
That's what we're gonna do. So right now, we're in the middle of pre. We have a contract. Well, we're using a device. We had to rebuild a fairly significantly sized vault. And we're gonna use it to capture trash, and we're gonna use it to with the charcoal type media. Capture the phosphorus in the media. And we believe it may be a year or 2 years worth of media. And we want to test to see, is it working? Because then it's not cheap. So this one's over $1 million to build it. And not every place in this city can we find enough room to put trees and bioswales and grass and all that have a meaningful reduction. They'll look pretty. I got that. And Heat Island, I got that. But we also have to make sure we're actually achieving pollution reduction for all the money we're going to be spent. So we will be testing ours. And the good news is, hope they perform better than we all imagine. Then everybody can use our data. If they don't perform as good as that, you don't want to see our data. And you don't have to listen to that.
You hide that data well, John.
All
John,
public
there was an article that came out. I think I shared with Declan and Ian not too long ago. You guys are going to be, Boston will be putting out a set of BMPs, right? You're designing a set of BMPs, templates, I'm assuming. Did you hear about that? Or is that related to a different, you're aware of this?
Yeah, so there's two things. Our mayor has assigned Kate England as the director of green infrastructure, and every time they touch a city street or move things around, they're going to do some green infrastructure. That's just, they're going to do it. They're going to just pray it works. We have put together on our website, you can find it under the green infrastructure. We have all the types of green infrastructure applications for the private properties we know will work. And now we're putting together, and it should be through in about 6 months, how to maintain them. And we want to have a checklist, because eventually, if people want to get credits for private property reduction of the stormwater fee, we want to make sure that somebody's keeping track of you're maintaining these things, because we're giving you a reduction in the fee. You have to prove to us the thing's there and it's working. So our initial one of what's approved here in the Boston, what does it mean and how does it look, is on the website. If you can't find it, because we are great at hiding things on the website. It's a hide and seek project. But if you can't find it, just throw me an email and we'll dig up that. But then the important part, along with, if you want to build one of these, before you build it, figure out how much maintenance you need to do with it. Because if you're not willing to do the maintenance, you just wasted a lot of capital money. So that's, and then we also have a major study going to be through at the end of the year that Amy and Charlie have worked on. And we actually went to the outfalls and said, how much reduction have we done? Have we accomplished the phosphorus? We've got all kinds of data that we will be publishing and sharing with all of you for all the work we've done over the last couple of years and how far we've come on a consent decree. And is there a particular area that's got more phosphorus than anywhere else? So that's where we want to go spend our money, get the biggest bang for the buck. So we get a lot of work going on, and we also are hiring. We just want to let you guys know that, for all you guys that want to be traded to your towns, come on over.
Thank you, John.
All right, we have time for one more question, if anybody has one. Going once. I can't see everybody on one screen. All right, well, thank you so much, Marina. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Great information, lessons learned, that Algerine corner. So I've for our next guest, I've asked Newt to come today.